pools, each with 400 tons of capacity. But a couple of years ago, it was enlarged with 3 more pools, so now its capacity is 2,400 units. It's a modular type design, so it is still possible to enlarge it should there be any need for it. But if we can start disposing of spent fuel, say within the next 10 years or so, there will hardly be any need for further interim storage capacity in Finland, at least not in the foreseeable future. The minimum cooling time for spent fuel is 20 years in Finland, but in practice we are planning longer cooling periods, say from 40 to 50 years. And this is the corresponding pool storage in Loviisa. It's basically of similar design there. And then I move on to the spent fuel disposal program. It was launched originally in the early 1980s. The main guidelines and target time schedule were defined in the government decision of 1983. So far, we've been able to follow this time schedule defined in this decision. So the site was selected in 2001, and the construction license application was submitted to the government in the late 2012. According to the original time schedule, we should be ready to start operating the facility in the early 2020s. So far, the most important milestone was passed in 2001 when the Finnish Parliament approved the so-called decision in principle on spent fuel disposal in Olkiluoto, near the Olkiluoto nuclear power plant. What was remarkable with this decision was that it was almost unanimous. There were only 3 Parliament members opposing it, 159 were for it, while 37 Parliament members were absent from this session. It was interesting also that even the Green Party members voted for this decision. In practice, the decision in principle meant that Posiva could go on with its development of the KBS concept and concentrate the site investigations at Olkiluoto, near the Olkiluoto nuclear power plant. The development will continue on the basis of the so-called KBS3 concept. In this concept, the spent fuel elements are packaged in containers with long expected lifetimes. They will be emplaced deep in the bedrock, emplaced with the buffer of bentonite clay, and after closure, this facility will no longer need any maintenance or monitoring, so it will be passively safe. The decision in principle also meant that Posiva could start constructing an underground rock characterization facility at Olkiluoto. According to Finnish regulations, the application for construction license could only be submitted after confirming the site suitability through underground site investigations. Of course, the plan was to use this facility for testing the repository technology and also making research into long-term safety of disposal. It was also used for developing the procedures that would be needed during construction and operation of the actual repository, including the quality management. The characterization facility was given the name Onkalo, which is a stylized acronym for the words Olkiluoto Rock Characterization Facility for Disposal. But the word Onkalo also means cave in Finnish. So it is possible that the name Onkalo will also be used for the repository, but so far it only means the rock characterization facility, and I'm not sure whether any decision has been made so far, whether the name will also be used in the future. This picture shows the layout of the Onkalo as it was built. Originally, the design was slightly different, but it was modified during the construction period on the basis of information obtained from bedrock during the construction period. There are 3 shafts and 1 tunnel leading to the repository depth of about 450 meters. 2 of the shafts are used for ventilation. 1 of the shafts will be for the personnel transfer to the repository depth. The construction work for the Onkalo facility was started in 2004. In this picture you can see the mouth of the Onkalo in the middle of the picture. In the background you can see the Olkiluoto nuclear power plant. So the repository will be constructed in the central areas of the island, about 2 kilometers away from the Olkiluoto nuclear power plant. And the repository depth was reached in 2010. This picture is from 2012, and here you can already see some of the surface buildings made to serve for the Onkalo facility as well. The outcome of the underground investigation was positive. The investigations confirmed the suitability of the Olkiluoto site for a high-level waste high-level waste repository. Indeed, suitable volumes for deposition holes and deposition tunnels could be identified in the Olkiluoto rock, and the features and characteristics of the bedrock were about as expected on the basis of surface drillings and other investigations. A huge amount of data was of course obtained, some of which was hard to obtain on the basis of surface investigations. We also got a huge amount of fracture data, which now can be used for more reliable modeling of the groundwater flow in Olkiluoto bedrock. The investigations carried out in Onkalo, together with the design and development work and the research into long-term safety, made it possible for Posiva to proceed to the licensing stage. In December 2012, Posiva submitted a construction license application to the government, and it was for a facility consisting of an underground repository at the depth of about 450 meters and an encapsulation facility located on the surface at the same site. The licensing documentation consisted of design descriptions, plans for construction and operation, and safety assessments for both the operational period and long term. Of course, the regulator, STUK, they reviewed the application, and their review addressed, of course, all the documentation that Posiva had submitted to the government. But as one could expect, that the main focus was on the long-term safety case. I don't have time to go through the safety case here, but those of you who are interested in the contents of the safety case can find all the reports in English on our website. It's about 15 main reports comprising about 4,000 pages altogether. At the conclusion of the safety case, yes, the main conclusion was that the overall radiological impact for the nature would be insignificant, negligible, and even for the most exposed human individuals, the risk of any health effect in the future would be very small and certainly under the regulatory limits. The main uncertainties of the safety case are related to some extreme conditions in the context of future glaciations, glacial cycling, that is. The nature of those conditions, those more or less extreme conditions, is still subject to research by Posiva and its partners. Notably, one of the main partners is SKB of Sweden. We have a long-term agreement on extensive cooperation with SKB, and together we are developing the KBS concept now to the point of actual implementation. So, the current focus of implementation. One of the important parts of the Onkalo design was the idea that it should be possible to use it as an access way to the repository as well. And the license now obtained from the government makes that possible. This picture shows in gray the Onkalo as it is, and it was built now, and in red the possible layout for the first parts of the repository as they are now designed. So with this system, if you really can use the Onkalo as an access way, this will certainly shorten the time we need for constructing the first parts of the repository. Instead of several years, we now only take a couple of years to complete the first parts of the repository, that is, the first deposition tunnels and house. However, you see there is also one new shaft still in the program. That new shaft will be used for transfer of the containers from the encapsulation facility down to the repository. We could, of course, use the tunnel for transportation of the canisters as well, but the current plan is to use the shaft. And here you can see the schematic picture of the encapsulation facility. It's a fairly simple facility which the spent fuel elements are packaged in composite canisters made of copper and nodular cast iron. And it is shown in this picture. After encapsulation, the disposal canisters can be taken to the lift and directed down to the repository. So, of course, this encapsulation facility needs to be located above the repository space. And this is indeed how it will be located. On the left-hand side of this picture, you see the present situation with the existing buildings, and on the right-hand side, you will see the encapsulation facility quite beside the existing ventilation building. In addition to the detailed design work for the encapsulation facility and deep repository, the focus of the current activities at Posiva is now on testing the technology needed for the repository, and especially for the installation of the repository system. A prototype version has already been built for all the installation machines, especially the canister installation equipment, the prototype buffer installation equipment, and the prototype backfill installation equipment. The first part of testing of this equipment took place in the surface facilities. We have now moved to real in situ conditions in the Onkalo, where the testing is now taking place. In addition to installation tests, we also have a major plug construction project in Olkiluoto. This is a part of the European DOPAS project, with several types of deposition, several types of plugs are being tested in realistic conditions and realistic scales. So, the ongoing testing program will culminate in full-scale tests of the repository technology in Onkalo, in which the installation of the whole repository system consisting of canister, buffer, backfill, and plugs will be tested. Heaters may be installed inside the canister. canisters, and in that case we can prolong the testing to make it a long-term monitoring experiment as well. These tests should then pave way for the actual commissioning tests and demonstrations that are planned to take place before applying for the operating license. Namely, Posiva still needs another license before they can start operating the facility. Here you can see all the licensing steps in Finland. EIA here stands for Environmental Impact Assessment, DIP for the Decision in Principle, in which the site selection was confirmed. Then we have the construction license, and last the operation license. And here in this picture you can see the artist's view of how the situation might look like in Olkiluoto in the early 2020s after Posiva has obtained the operating license. And here the situation is about 100 years later, when all the spent fuel from the existing and now planned nuclear power plants has been, according to the plans, has been disposed of. This is the long-term vision of Posiva. Before this is true, a number of challenges are still facing Posiva. However, at the moment, there are no showstoppers visible that could seriously put this vision in doubt. Posiva is busy working on the detailed design of the facility, of the facilities, and also of the repository system, and the actual construction work of the repository could start in the near future. So far, the Finnish program has progressed quite smoothly in comparison with many other programs in the world. And often I have been posed the question, so what is the secret behind the Finnish success so far? I think that the situation is different in different countries, and a part of the success in Finland so far, it may also be due to good luck. However, in my opinion, one of the ingredients and success factors in Finland is the systematic, I would say, modern approach taken for the disposal program in the early 1980s. It provided opportunities for public and political debate and discussion on the basis of checkpoints defined in the stepwise process, like they were defined in this program. The new nuclear energy legislation introduced in 1987 also empowered the local citizens with an absolute veto on the siting issues, while the final decision on siting was still left for the parliament. And despite the government guidelines, still the power companies were left with sufficient flexibility to design their waste solutions according to their particular needs. Of course, for siting it was important that a suitable site could be found in the vicinity of the existing nuclear power plant. It certainly facilitated obtaining the construction license and also the siting decision. I understand that such an opportunity may not be available in all countries of the world, but for example, in our neighboring country, Sweden, the same approach has been followed. In Sweden, the review of the construction license application is still ongoing, but I expect that at least some preliminary decisions will also be made in Sweden towards the end of this year. And this completes my talk. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vira. So the topic is changed from disposal to public acceptance. The second speaker of the this session is Mr. Bernard Monod from France. So he is currently Director of the External Relations at Areva TN. So please welcome Mr. Monod.
Well, okay. So, good morning, everybody. It's a great honor for me to be here. It's my first time in Korea. So, during last weekend, I have enjoyed the weekend in Seoul, and this day I have enjoyed the beautiful weather in Busan. So, thank you. My presentation will address a very specific option, which is the global acceptance. How to help all the investment to be really accepted by the population. And I will explain few highlights on a global acceptance model we have developed in my company. And then afterwards, not to be too pompous, I will explain 3 examples around the world. Okay, so few basics first of all on the global acceptance experience. First of all, we have to take care of the time frame, especially in nuclear. As you know, when you are proposing a nuclear power plant, for example, you think that this equipment will be in the landscape during at least 1 century, 10 years or 6, 7 years for construction, 60 years of management, and then afterwards decommissioning. And I'm not talking about the final repository, or is not a century, but many centuries. So the time frame, especially in the nuclear industry, is not the time frame of the common people industry. And we can have a large impact for local community. In many countries as well, you have the public opinion emergence. Even in country which has the reputation not to have a public opinion, you could face a sort of opposition. NGOs are more and more influential, and everybody can create an NGO, and everybody can be in a position with any sort of investment. Neighbor countries can be concerned as well. Some from time to time are quite forgotten. This is very specific in Europe, for example, because there's a lot of countries in a very small area. And these days, for example, a lot of French nuclear power plants close by the borders are under pressure from the foreign government in Germany or in Belgium or in Luxembourg. So neighboring countries, it's a key player as well. And third-party advocates are welcome. Third-party advocates are people who are willing to help you without having the reputation to be on your side or to be paid by you in a term of credibility. For example, Professor Suzuki, who was here yesterday, was one of our third-party advocates in Japan. And we have some of these people in different countries in the world who help us to deliver our message to the local community and to the local administration, especially as far as transport is concerned. So the community approach we have developed has many stakes. Stakeholders identification is very important. This is a very important step in the global acceptance model. You need to identify all the stakeholders involved in your project, because it's the stakeholder you have forgotten who will cause you a lot of problems. There is also a part of NGOs management. Sometimes NGOs are against your project, especially in nuclear, when you can find a lot of opposition in different countries. We try to make them partner rather than opponents. In France, we have created a high committee on transparency on nuclear security, where you have members of parliaments, mayors of the cities, people from the Chamber of Commerce and so forth, and also opponents to the nuclear, which who are inside this body, and they can take part of the discussion. Third-party advocates, as mentioned already, and I will explain with 3 examples how we have developed our program. So the business model is quite very simple. On the first phase, we have to identify the stakeholders. As I said, it's a very important phase because it's the stakeholders you forgot, which will cause you a lot of problem. Select the stakeholders. In case of transport, it could be huge amount of stakeholders everywhere in the world, as I will explain for the transport experience. As you cannot address everybody everywhere, you need to select the most relevant stakeholders. Those who can be on your side, or those you have to convince to accept your investment. Then afterwards, you need to inform these people, and you have to deliver and to tailor-made some messages. You're not obliged to say the same thing to everybody. Some people are focused on economy, on job, others are focused on safety, others are focused on long-term, and so far. So you need to have a specific speech and a specific speech for every stakeholders. And then you need to network because of this time framework. During the life of your equipment, you will have elections, people will retire, there will be newcomers, new politicians, new NGOs and opponents, and so you need to have a very fresh network at every moment. So 3 examples of the global acceptance model we have developed in Arriva. The first one is building a new recycling plant with new technology in a remote place in Normandy. So everybody knows, a lot of people here know the site of La Hague in the northwest of France, the reprocessing recycling facility. In the 1982, we started to enlarge the facility and moving its capacity from 400 tons of spent fuel a year to 1,800 spent fuel a year. And so we had to welcome 12,000 people on the construction peak. So we identified the local needs to perform the construction and exploitation. You can imagine that if you have to welcome 12,000 people for 10 years, you need to have all the infrastructure and equipment, and you need also to have the assessment and the agreement of the local population. So we created a local socio-economic body. We call it the big site. And the big site was an administrative structure able to deal with national and local authority. And so we interface on all these subjects that we can see here: housing, local network, local electricity, education and training. It is very important because on the large time frame to have people very well educated to work in your facility. Subcontract management, waste management, health and security. We were part of the local hospital administration. We create some decontamination rooms in case of problem. And we create a lot of communication with the local committee of information and stakeholder relationship. So at the end of the process, we had the construction phase without delay and problem. And what has been done during the investment phase was very useful for the management phase, as you can see, with the involvement of stakeholders, education and training. The second example I want to address is the transport. So as far as you are working in a facility, I don't think it's quite simple, but the stakeholders are very known. The environment is very well known. You know the stakeholders, you know your opponents, you know the mayor, you know the local politicians and so forth. When you are transporting around the world, you are addressing a lot of stakeholders. You don't know them. They don't know you. From time to time, they are discovering that you are transporting nuclear material in their backyard, referring to the NIMBY concept, not in my backyard. And when we have from time to time some incident, people realize that we are transporting nuclear materials close by the home of their house. So for this example, we are transporting spent fuel and recycling products and waste. In the 80s, we had a contract with 10 Japanese utilities to reprocess spent fuel from Japanese nuclear power plants. They move 3,000 tons of spent fuel in France to be reprocessed in Lag, and in Sellafield in UK to be reprocessed. So this flow of material came from Japan by ship, by the way, between 1988 and to 1994. In 1994, we started to ship back to Japan the result of the reprocessing. That means the MOX fuel, so the new fuel combined with the plutonium and uranium, and the waste. And at the very moment, we had some problems. Since the very beginning, there was strong opposition from coastal states and regional organizations. So coastal states is a notion which has been developed inside the IAEA. That means that these coastal states are the states which are on the road of the maritime transport, even if we never go into the territorial water, even not into the EEZ. But the simple fact that a ship loaded with radioactive waste is crossing away the coast could attract interest from the coastal state and opposition from coastal states and from regional organizations. So our Japanese customers ask us to prepare and to establish a program to identify the relevant stakeholders and to facilitate the transport and deliver the proper messages to the local authorities and administration, to the industrial partner. For example, it referred to ACP, which is a Panama Canal Authority, because we were using Panama Canal. And the third-party advocates, that mean university and media all around the world, to facilitate our transport. We visited a lot of these countries during the transport or before the transport, and we were supported by the regional organization like the Pacific Island Forum in Fiji or the CARICOM in the Caribbean islands. So over 30 years, we moved from Europe to Japan using 3 routes, as you can see. The first route is moving through the south of Africa, South Africa, and in the Tasman Sea between Australia and New Zealand and in the Pacific Islands. So we had a lot of opposition in this region, especially in New Zealand, which is a very anti-nuclear country, and they do not like our transport. We're using Panama Canal, where we have a lot of opposition from the Caribbean states. That's why you can see that we are quite often in the Caribbean islands to convince people that our business and our transport are safe and secure. And the third route we were using was the Cape Horn route in the south of South America, which is not really used because of the bad weather conditions in the south of the continent. So in these countries, we are meeting with the main administration people, but also with the civil society, also with the university. We did a lot of presentation at the Panama Maritime University. We did the presentation in the Caribbean islands. We have a project to make a presentation and organize a regional seminar in Jamaica at the University of West Indies. So we focus also on the education because, as I said, in terms of time, we will meet a lot of newcomers and new people coming from universities and education world to meet, to talk with for our transport. Okay, so my last example, it's an example in the US. So we have a partner. His name is Waste Control Specialist, WCS, and they have a low-level waste storage in Andrew counties in Texas, in the USA, which was established and managed by WCS since 20 years. They apply for a license to enlarge and to welcome high-level waste, especially spent fuels, because there is no recycling in the US. And so, as our partner, we exchange our experiences in terms of global acceptance. So they describe the impact of WCS project in the Andrews County with the investment, the jobs created, the taxes paid in the county and in regional employees, the employment at the site, the fees revenue received by Andrew County and Texas, and they had a long tradition of discussion and open mind to the local stakeholders. So the site is here, it's located close by the border between Texas and New Mexico. It appears like this, that it could be a sort of very remote place, but everywhere you have local communities. I was talking with people from Canada where they were looking for a repository site, and we said, why are you not going to move this site in the very north of Canada where there is nobody? And there is not nobody nowhere. You have always a landowner or a tribe or whatsoever community. It's the same in Texas. And so WCS took very seriously this problem of global acceptance. They appointed a vice president of community affairs, so a guy who was in charge with develop the links with the local community. They have a very active presence in the national medias, National Press Club in Washington, D.C., regional media. They were involved in the Andrews County Chamber of Commerce, because to explain the local impact for the community in terms of job, in terms of taxes, in terms of economic development. And the public support was very visible during all the licensing operation. They did a lot of lobbying to perform through the regulatory bodies, and they inform as well the neighboring state. It's not a neighboring country, but it's a neighboring state, New Mexico, or about their project. So a few images what they did: local radio broadcasting, community support, meeting with the National Press Club, inauguration with the authorities, legislative visits, and so far. So the visits, for example, of your facility is a very good tool to explain what you are doing and where you are going. So the WCS project, they have some lessons learned dealing with the authorities. So they have a lot of authorities, and in that case as well, they did a very specific selection of the best, also most relevant stakeholders. They want to avoid surprise, to gain and keep community support. The worst condition is to take the community by surprise. All of a sudden, the community is discovering that you're coming and you're establishing a plant or a repository or a transport or so far. And this is very dangerous. Be open to media markets. From time to time, the engineers and even the nuclear community are quite a little bit reluctant to deal with the press and the media. In that case, it was not the case. And the consent-based support must be visible, so you should have your ally visible. And it's not a static concept, as I said, because of the time frame. It's not a static concern. It's a long-term process that you have to renew and renew again your contact with your communities. Why a global acceptance program is useful? First of all, we think it's a consideration for any stakeholder. There is no stupid stakeholders or ignorant stakeholders or whatever. Every stakeholders need your consideration. It's a process to address and any participant in the program. It's a lobbying tool as well. I used to say that the global acceptance is a mix between lobbying and communication. Communication to inform again and again and again, because the world is moving, and you can select selected delivery message to any stakeholder involved. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mono again. So we move to the next presentation, and the Dr. Wataru Masumi. He is a senior researcher at the Nuclear Fuel Cycle Back-End Research Center, the KAP from Japan. So he will present the Japanese situation of SNF management, so with the focus of dry storage facility. So please welcome Dr. Wataru.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm honored to be here and to present our situation. My name is Masumi Wataru. I work in KAP. And KAP is a non-profit institute to undertake researches related to energy and the environment for Japanese electric power companies. I explain spent nuclear fuel management in Japan. I'm a researcher, not a government officer, and not a politician, so the information sources of my presentation is public information. The contents of my presentation is as follows. At first, I explain current situation of interim storage in Japan. In Japan, the cabinet approved new basic energy plan on April 11, 2014. In it, it is written that nuclear power will be positioned as an important baseload power source, and the nuclear fuel cycle will continue to be promoted. Another important point is the change of methodology for the repository site selection process. It is written that the government will lead the effort for the final disposal of high-level radioactive waste. Before, the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, we call NUMO, has been seeking candidate sites by open solicitation municipalities since 2002. But no municipality has requested a study of whether they are suitable disposal sites due to opposition from local residents. Now, the government is classifying geological suitable site for the final disposal site. And this slide shows the share of energy mix in Japan. Before Fukushima accident, share of nuclear power was about 30%. And after Fukushima accident, share of LNG, oil, and coal increased instead of nuclear power. In the discussion of the share of nuclear in the nation's energy mix, the government, the METI, set a target of 20 to 22% in fiscal year 2030. To meet this target, it would require either building more reactors or extending the working life of existing reactors. But in my opinion, it is very difficult to solve this issue. The government announced the action plan of the measures for spent nuclear fuel in October last year. In the action plan, the government requests electric power companies to make the plan of the measures for spent nuclear fuel and establish a council consisting of the government and the electric power companies. In response to this request, electric power companies will draw up a plan. The first council was held on November 20th in last year. The Federation of Electric Power Companies of Japan plans to increase the storage capacity of 6,000 ton uranium of spent nuclear fuel by 2030, including Mutsu facility, tube facility, relocking of pool, etc. I explain later. And in 6,000 ton uranium, the new facility, which Kansai Electric Power Company plans to build, is included. Kansai Electric Power Company announced the capacity of new facility is 2,000 ton uranium, and the target date of the operation is 2030. And this table shows the percentage of spent fuel stock to control capacity of each electric power companies after restart about 5 years later. There are not so many margins, but please pay attention that there are many assumptions for these estimations, so please refer to original document released by the Federation of Electric Power Companies of Japan. And this figure shows the nuclear facility in Japan. There are 42 nuclear power units now. Among them, Sendai 1 and 2 restarted on August and October in last year. But last weekend, there were big earthquakes in Kyushu area, as you know. Sendai Nuclear 1 and 2 were functioning normally, so Sendai 1 and 2 is working now. And except Sendai Nuclear 1 and 2, 3 units got the permission from Nuclear Regulation Authority, we call NRA. Takahama Unit 3 restarted on January, and also Takahama 4, Unit 4, restarted on February in this year. But both units were shut down because of lawsuit issue on last month. A Japanese district court issued an injunction to halt operation. On the other hand, a Japanese high court rejected an appeal by local residents against the lower court decision allowing of the restart of Sendai 1 and 2. So the judgment of court are different. After many of nuclear power plants restarted, nuclear fuel will arise, and electric power companies need to take measures for the safe spent nuclear fuel storage. Japan has an adopted closed nuclear fuel cycle policy. And most of spent nuclear fuel discharged from commercial nuclear power plants are stored in the storage pool at reactor site and Rokkashomura reprocessing plant now. And stored spent nuclear fuel in Japan is about 17,000 ton uranium. And it was postponed the opening of the reprocessing plant in Rokkashomura 2018. The spent nuclear fuel storage pool in reprocessing plant is almost full. And before Fukushima accident, there were 2 dry storage facilities using metal cask in Japan. One was in Fukushima Daiichi site, and another one is in Tokai Daini site. A dry storage building in Fukushima Daiichi site was damaged by tsunami after the Great East Japan earthquake, 2011. There were no significant impact on the stored casks. These casks were transferred to the temporary custody storage area in Fukushima Daiichi site after checking the integrity of cask in the common pool. Concerning the spent fuel in the pool of Unit 4 of Fukushima Daiichi, all the fuel assemblies were transferred to the common pool and pool of Unit 6 until December 2014. Now, Tokyo Electric Power Company is preparing for the fuel removal from the pool of Unit 3. The dry storage facility in Tokai Daini is in operation by Japan Atomic Power Corporation, we call JAPC. The JAPC takes an inspection of the storage facility from regulatory body NRA based on the new regulations. Dry storage facility located in Mutsu City is the first Japanese dry storage facility away from reactor site operated by recyclable fuel storage company we call RFS. The total storage capacity of Mutsu site is 5,000 ton volume. The RFS has completed construction work of Mutsu City. The first building is constructed already, 3,000 ton volume in August 2030. The facility is not in operation because the RFS submitted application to NRA on January 2014, but they have not got the permission yet. And Chubu Electric Power Company announced the construction plans for a dry storage facility on December 2008. And on July 2014, Chubu Electric Power Company changed the plan, taking the new regulation into account. The capacity of the storage facility was changed from 700 ton volume to 400 ton volume. And Chubu Electric Power Company has submitted the application to the NRA and aims for start of operation in 2018. The Tokai Unit 1 terminated its commercial operation on March 31st, 1998, and it's currently being decommissioning. And Hamaoka Unit 1 and 2 terminated operation in January 2009 and subsequently moved to the decommissioning stage starting in November of the same year. After Fukushima accident, 4 electric power companies considered closure of aged reactors. There are 7 reactors that have been under operation for about 40 years. And 4 utilities announced they would decommission 5 commercial nuclear reactors rather than apply for restart that could extend their operation life in 2015. And also in 2016, in this year, Shikoku Electric Power Company also announced Ikata Unit 1 would be decommissioned for economic reasons. Due to the decommissioning, electric power companies have to consider measures for the spent nuclear storage also. And Kansai Electric Power Company was set to apply to extend the operation period of 2 aged reactors at Takahama nuclear power plant. The NRA carried out a complete review of safety guidelines and regulatory requirements with the aim of formulating a set of new regulations to protect the people and the environment. The new regulation for the nuclear power plant was enforced on July 8, 2013. And this slide shows the outline of draft of new regulation for storage facilities. After public comments, the new regulation for storage facilities was enforced on December 18, 2013. And Recyclable Fuel Storage Company submitted the application to the NRA on January 15, 2014, as I said before. But now, 107 hearing meetings from RFS were held, but they have not get the permission from the NRA. The second item is studied on the dry storage facility in KAP. But today, I do not explain in detail. So if you are interested in our activities, please contact me by email, etc. The interim dry storage using metal cask and concrete cask is a mature and common technology in the world. For the metal cask, we performed several demonstration tests on the heat removal, drop accident, missile impact, and seismic and seal performance tests. Among them, we are focusing on the long-term seal performance, taking account of aging management and transport after storage. And there is no dry storage facility using a concrete cask in Japan. But we, KAP, think that concrete cask will be needed in the near future in Japan. So for the concrete cask, we also performed the several demonstration tests on the heat removal, high temperature concrete material, seismic, canister drop, and welding inspection, and stress corrosion of the canister. Among them, we are focusing on the SUC of the canister. The SUC of the canister is a common issue in the world now. And we participate in the international research program, such as IAEA, USA, to discuss the issue on the long-term dry storage of spent nuclear fuel. Okay, this is my summary. So after restart of the nuclear power plant, the Japanese electric power company will face the issue of spent nuclear fuel storage management. The Japanese government released action plan on measures for the spent nuclear fuel. And Japanese electric power companies will draw up a plan to deal with the spent nuclear fuel measures. And KAP is continuing the studies on the following issues of dry storage technologies for metal cask, long-term seal performance, and concrete cask, SUC of the canister, and both aging management. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wataru. So we move to the next presentation. So the presentation is toward the Russian case of spent nuclear fuel management. The speaker is Mr. Igor Merkulov. He is currently Deputy Director General on Innovations at the mining and chemical combine, so Rosatom in Russia. Please. He will translate his talk, presentation.
1, 2.
Next page, the previous page. This laser pointer is not, it doesn't work. Yeah.
Извините меня, я хочу поприветствовать всех делегатов этой конференции.
I would like to greet all the audience of the conference.
Сегодня мне будет помогать в переводе Зайцев Алексей, мой
Today
коллега.
I'll be escorted by my interpreter Alexei Zaitsev.
Я сегодня хочу рассказать о наших достижениях,
And I'd like to speak a little bit about our progress
в обращении с отработавшим ядерным топливом энергетических реакторов.
on spent nuclear fuel management of power reactors at our enterprise.
Ну, на этом слайде вы видите концепцию по замыканию ядерного топливного цикла.
In the first slide, you can see the principal concept of closing the nuclear fuel cycle at our enterprise called Mining and Chemical Combine.
Росатом придерживается политики переработки отработавшего ядерного топлива, а не прямого его захоронения.
Rosatom has a tendency of reprocessing spent nuclear fuel. So,
Ну вот синим обведено то, что мы уже построили.
the blue color is for the existing MCC productions.
И вот тут зелененький кружочек, производство МОКС-топлива, оно тоже введено в эксплуатацию.
And I'd
уже.
like to mention that the central part of this diagram, which is called MOX fuel production plant, in the very center of this principal scheme, we have also already built it.
И после завершения сооружения ОДЦ, опытно-демонстрационного центра по переработке ОЯД,
And after the construction of pilot demonstration center,
получится замыкание ядерного топливного цикла с возвратом урана-плутония, быстрые реактора, и урана в тепловые.
after closing, we are moving to closing the nuclear fuel cycle with returning the fuel to thermal reactors and other types of reactors.
Так, централизованная реализация промышленной инфраструктуры заключается в следующем.
Now we are going to speak a little bit about the implementation of the industrial infrastructure for closed nuclear fuel cycle at MCC.
Централизация хранения ОЯД на площадке горно-химического комбината.
We are going to store, to have a centralized storage at our site.
Да, это централизованное мокрое хранилище или
First of all,
водоохлаждаемое, правильно.
I'd like to mention the centralized wet storage facility, water-cooled storage for the fuel from the reactors type VVR-1000.
Централизованное воздухоохлаждаемое, так называемое сухое хранилище для реакторов РБМК-1000 и ВВР-1000.
The second point is for the dry storage facility. It's air-cooled type storage for the reactors, for the fuel from the reactors RBMK-1000.
Опытно-демонстрационный центр по переработке отработавшего ядерного топлива.
Then goes the pilot demo center for spent nuclear fuel reprocessing.
И производство МОКС-топлива для топливообеспечения реакторной установки БН-800, которая сейчас построена в городе Белоярске, на Белоярской АЭС.
And of course, the MOX fuel production to supply the reactor type called PN800 for the NPP created at Beloyarsk in the Russian Federation.
Мокрое хранилище, так называемое, водоохлаждаемое.
Now let's turn to the so-called water-cooled wet storage facility.
Вы видите зал хранения.
In this slide, you can easily see the storing hall.
Хранилище состоит из 15 отдельных бассейнов,
This type of storage consists of 15 separate bays.
которые при необходимости можно разгрузить от топлива, один из них.
If necessary, you can empty one of the bays and reload the fuel,
И произвести ремонт обшивки.
and to make some repairments if necessary.
Но за 30 лет эксплуатации хранилища ни одной протечки не было из бассейна.
But within the 30 years of operation, we didn't have the necessity to do it.
Хранилище, как тут написано, эксплуатируется с 1985 года.
So as far as you can see, we have been operating this type of storage since the year 1985.
И в 2015 году, то есть в прошлом году, мы продлили срок его службы, эксплуатации еще на 30 лет.
Last year, the year 2015, we prolonged the operational term of this type of storage for the next 30 years.
С февраля 2012 года функционирует пусковой комплекс сухого хранилища, предназначенный для хранения ОЯД РБМК-1000.
Since February 2012, the first starting launching complex of the dry storage facility for RBMK-1000 spent nuclear fuel has been in operation.
Проект хранилища прошел международную экспертизу в компании CGN, Франция, в 2002, по-моему, году.
As far as I remember, in the year 2002, the project of the facility has successfully passed the international expert assessment at SGN Company, France.
Предложения, указанные в экспертном заключении, были учтены при сооружении хранилища.
The experts of the company made their proposals, and those proposals were taken into account when constructing the storage facility.
Строительные конструкции здания сохраняют целостность при сейсмическом воздействии до 10 баллов и выдерживают прямое попадание небольшого самолета.
The constructions of the facility can easily maintain integrity under earthquake load up to 10 points, and by the way, they can withstand direct plane crash.
Так, используется уникальное оборудование российской разработки, не имеющее аналогов в мире.
We would like to mention that we use the unique peerless equipment of the Russian design, which has no equals all over the world.
Все технологические операции, связанные с перемещением АЯТ, выполняются в автоматическом режиме.
All the operations relating to spent nuclear fuel transfer are carried out automatically with computer vision.
Что позволяет снизить значительно радиационную нагрузку на персонал и исключить влияние ошибок персонала.
So it helps to decrease radiation influence to personnel and exclude the so-called human factor.
Ну и самое главное, это использование пассивного принципа обеспечения безопасности при хранении отработавшего ядерного топлива.
And the main tendency is to use the passive safety approach when storing spent nuclear fuel.
Охлаждение топлива достигается конвекцией воздуха.
We cool down the fuel due to natural cooling air convection.
Да, необходимо отметить тот факт, что при хранении отработавшего ядерного топлива в водоохлаждаемом хранилище используется активный принцип обеспечения безопасности.
And I'd like to mention that when storing spent nuclear fuel in the water-cooled storage, we use the active principle of safety.
На этой слайде показан зал хранения.
In the next slide, you can see the storing hall.
А там на дальнем плане перегрузочная машина.
And you can see in the back of the picture the so-called reloading machine.
На этом слайде показана камера перегрузки топлива из транспортных упаковочных комплектов в пеналы хранения.
So here you can see the hot cell for packaging spent nuclear fuel canisters.
Вот вы видите на слайде белые руки.
So you can see the white hands here.
Это манипуляторы ручные.
Those are manual manipulators.
Но они не используются при перегрузке, они используются при проведении вспомогательных операций.
But they are not used in technology. They are for auxiliary purposes.
Все оборудование, которое используется при перегрузке, оно многотоннажное и разработано в России.
All the equipment for reloading the fuel is designed in Russia and is a large-scale equipment.
Вот на этом снимке видно комплекс хранилищ ОЯТ АВВР-1000 и РБМК-1000 сухих.
Here you can see the storing complex for spent nuclear fuel from RBMK-1000 and VVR-1000 reactors.
В полном развитии, которое введено в эксплуатацию в декабре 2015 года.
This complex is entirely commissioned in December 2015.
Цель создания опытно-демонстрационного центра на ГХК.
We have a special purpose for creating pilot demo center at MCC.
Да, это промышленная демонстрация возможности экологически безопасного и эффективного решения проблемы накопленного отработавшего ядерного топлива.
Well, the main purpose is in industrial demonstration of possibility to solve any problems of spent nuclear fuel accumulation effectively and safely.
Ну и, то есть 3 пути достижения этой цели – это обеспечение безопасности переработки отработавшего ядерного топлива,
There are 3 main points to implement that purpose. The first one is spent nuclear fuel reprocessing safely.
отсутствие негативного экологического воздействия,
The second point is absence of negative ecological impact.
ну и на 3-м месте добиться экономической эффективности переработки отработанного ядерного топлива.
And of course, the cost effectiveness of reprocessing the fuel.
Ну, здесь на этом слайде приведено развитие переработки отработанного ядерного топлива.
Here you can see different generations of radiochemical plants before generation 4.
Да, и вот на 3-м месте здесь опытно-демонстрационный центр.
And the third position is occupied by Pilot Demo Center of Mining and Chemical Combine.
Мы построили технологию таким образом, что жидких сбросов, низкоактивных отходов вообще не будет.
We have created the technology in such a way that we will have absolutely no liquid discharges.
Технология ОДЦ построена на принципе минимизации технологических операций и применения уникального оборудования.
Well, the PDC technology is constructed according to the approach of minimizing production steps, along with the application of the unique PLS equipment.
Ну и, как я уже сказал, будут отсутствовать любые жидкие сбросы радиоактивных отходов.
And as far as I have already mentioned, there will be no liquid low-level wastes.
Теперь по корейской проблеме.
Now we are turning to Korean problem.
Горно-химический комбинат имеет многолетний успешный безаварийный опыт крупнотоннажной переработки отработавшего ядерного топлива.
We have a long-term successful accident-free experience of the large capacity spent nuclear fuel reprocessing.
Для реакторов, которые используют топливо с ураном естественного обогащения.
For the reactors which use naturally enriched uranium.
В настоящий момент обладает всей необходимой инфраструктурой, компетенциями для переработки уят-кандум.
Now we have all necessary infrastructures and competencies for CANDU spent nuclear fuel reprocessing.
Тут указаны экологические требования к переработке уят-канду.
Here we showed the environmental requirements to CANDU reprocessing.
То есть помещение продуктов деления в твердую матрицу,
So first of all, immobilization of fission products into solid matrix.
приемлемую для долговременного хранения на территории заказчика.
This is for the long-term storage at the customer's site.
Максимальное использование выделенных из отработавшего ядерного топлива урана и плутония.
And of course, the maximum possible use of the uranium and plutonium extracted from the fuel,
который используется в топливном цикле заказчика.
which is used in the nuclear fuel cycle of the customer.
Но основные показатели и возможности проекта.
The highlights of the projects are as follows.
Сроки реализации 2,5 года.
The lead time for the project is about 2.5 years.
Перерабатывая объем отработавшего ядерного топлива до 3000 тонн в год.
The total amount of spent nuclear fuel reprocessed is up to 3,000 tons annually.
Ну и по номенклатуре основными продуктами переработки это будет являться смесь оксидов урана.
And as for the range of products, the basic reprocessing products will
урана и
be
плутония, смесь оксидов урана и плутония.
mixed oxides of uranium and plutonium,
Закись-окись урана.
uranium protoxide,
Ну и, возможно, корректировка номенклатуры выделяемых ценных компонентов по требованию заказчика.
and of course we can correct the range of products according to the customer's demands.
Ну, твердые отходы компактируются в твердый вид.
So as for processing wastes, they are compacted solid radioactive wastes in safe containers.
Ну и Росатом предлагает еще возможность изготовления свежего топлива КАНДУ из выделенных ценных компонентов.
And Rosatom, by the way, has a possibility to create CANDU fresh fuel from the extracted valuable components.
Ну и теперь наша основная гордость
And
– это производство МОКС-топлива.
our main pride is MOX fuel production.
В 2014 году на горно-химическом комбинате создано промышленное производство МОКС-топлива.
We have created the full-scale industrial production of MOX fuel in the year 2014.
Производство находится в подгорной части горно-химического комбината, это под землей.
The production is implemented inside the bedrock in the underground facilities.
Сооружение длилось 2,5 года.
We created it within 2.5 years.
Ну и горная порода является естественным контайнментом.
And the bedrock, of course, is a natural containment.
Все технологические операции автоматизированы полностью.
All the operations are fully automatic.
В декабре 2015 года выпущена первая ТВС на уране-плутонии, то есть МОКС.
In December 2015, we have created the first industrial-scale MOX fuel assembly.
Вот вы ее видите.
So you can see the picture of it.
Ну и в заключение,
To conclude my report,
переработка отработавшего ядерного топлива и замыкание ядерного топливного цикла позволит повысить безопасность обращения с отработавшим ядерным топливом.
Closing the nuclear fuel cycle and reprocessing of the fuel will help to improve spent nuclear fuel management due to the qualitative reduction of spent fuel volumes and decrease of generated red wastes.
Ввиду качественного сокращения объемов отработавшего ядерного топлива и снижения на порядке объемов образующихся РАО.
Yes, as far as I have said, we reduce the quantity of spent nuclear fuel volume and red wastes generated.
Да, ну и на одной площадке в едином технологическом комплексе на ГХК размещены совместно 3 промышленных передела. Это хранение отработавшего ядерного топлива, переработка его и фабрикация МОКС-топлива.
We have combined the 3 jointly operated production stages. They are located just at one site of mining and chemical combine, and they are as follows: spent nuclear fuel storing, reprocessing, and MOX fuel production.
Ну и тут еще нужно упомянуть старое радиохимическое производство, которое сейчас находится в консервации.
And I'd like to also to mention the older radiochemical production, which is now conserved.
Такой комплекс, обладая достаточной технологической гибкостью, может обеспечить крупнотоннажную переработку ЯД-КАНДУ и любых тепловых реакторов.
Such complex has all necessary functional flexibilities and can ensure large capacity reprocessing of up to 3,000 tons of CANDU spent nuclear fuel.
Ну и выпуск свежего топлива для энергетических реакторов различного дизайна.
Along with fresh fuel fabrication for power reactors of different designs.
Если у вас возникнут вопросы, у нас есть здесь представительство фирмы Tenex Korea.
If you have any questions, there is a special organization in Korea which is called Tenex Korea.
Мы работаем с ними очень плотно.
We work directly with them.
Вот можете вопросы сформулировать и передать Денису Муравьеву.
So you can shape your questions and direct them to this firm, to Denis Muravyev, who is representative of Tenex Korea.
И мы ответим на каждый из ваших вопросов.
And we
более
will be
подробно.
glad to answer all the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Merkelov. Okay, the last presentation will be made by myself. So I'm going through faster because we have little bit beyond our time schedule. Okay, so the spent nuclear fuel management has become the Achilles heel in the nuclear industry. So I'll show you the current status and the future trends of spent nuclear fuel in Korea. And I introduce some key topics in storage and disposal of spent nuclear fuel, so including the high-level waste. And I'll show you also the technological option for Korea. And finally, I'll finish my talk with my very personal remark. Okay, this is the content of my talk. Okay, as you know, we have dry options. So in back-end nuclear fuel cycle, the direct disposal, and the second option is deeper route of spent nuclear fuel, so up to disposal. The third option is reprocessing and recycling. So in Korea, currently we have two options, possibly. So deeper route of SNF and recycling of spent nuclear fuels. So because we do not have a final repository. And this is the current situation of nuclear power in Korea. So the nuclear power covers almost 30% of total electricity generation. And so we have increased nuclear spent nuclear fuel inventory up to 2035. And even with an installation of compact re-racking and transshipment from one reactor to another or from one site to other site, so the storage capacity in Hanbit nuclear power plant will be exhausted in 2024, and Walsung, the Kandu spent nuclear fuel, will be fully occupied in 2019. And in order to resolving this highlighting or urgent issue on spent nuclear fuel management, the Korean government established the Public Engagement Commission on Spent Nuclear Fuel Management. And the PECOS has launched in October 2013 and has been actively run for 20 months. And its activity results as a recommendation report will be was submitted to the government in June of 2015. And there are three key milestones with three important timelines. And the PECOS recommended the citing of URL by 2020. And if it is not possible, then PECOS recommended also that temporary storage facility will be prepared on site. And in 2030, it is started to study the demonstration and validation of disposal technology in a deep geological repository. And in 2051, the final repository will be implemented, commissioned. And since 1979 and 78, after commercialization of nuclear power in Korea, the government has held on to the wait and see policy. And that means, frankly speaking, in my opinion, the wait and see is no better than no policy. No policy on spent nuclear fuel. And soon, I think the Korean government will announce the national basic policy on spent nuclear fuel management. So I heard in the beginning of May, and so we changed so-called national policy on spent nuclear fuel management. And so in practice, there are two types of storage facility in Korea. So wet storage for PWR and dry storage for CANDU, spent nuclear fuel. So in a type of silo and vault. And after Fukushima, the dry storage facility becomes more and more preferred, and it is constructed with being modular. That means it is easily expandable and spreads the capital investment over time. So in a longer term, very simple passive cooling system, so reducing operation and maintenance requirement and cost. So we are also preparing the dry storage facility possibly. And there are safety criteria for spent nuclear fuel storage. The safety objectives are to maintain subcriticality, so K effective less than 0.95, to provide the radiation protection, and to maintain the containment of radioactivity over a lifetime of storage facility. So of course, the heat must be safely removed. There are several safety-related parameters. Okay, what is the key topics for SNF storage? So, for example, US NRC has been attempting to develop long-term storage, beyond 100 years for plus alpha. And so we need new requirements of regulation systems and monitoring concepts, aging management plans, such as understanding of aging and monitoring aging. So that means it detects precursors of aging, degradation of materials. And we have also some long-term R&D programs, the confinement of radioactivity, the transferability, or the retrievability, and the chloride, SCC, stress corrosion cracking. So when the storage facility is located at the seaside, then we have to prevent chloride corrosion phenomena. And for the long-term storage of spent nuclear fuel, we have to also consider DHC, delayed hydride corrosion, for example. And the safety of long-term storage facility beyond 100 years is extremely difficult to be demonstrated due to the large lack of safety-related data, and especially experimental evidences. So in any way, however, final disposal concept is needed to be implemented as soon as possible. So that means extension of interim storage does not mean to delay the decision on repository concept and the site selection to a later stage, in my opinion. Okay, disposal concept of spent nuclear fuel and including high-level waste. This is the objective, safe objective of disposal. The facility is to confine waste and to isolate it from environment. And this is one example of SKB concept. And so the most appropriate disposal concept is a deep geological disposal with multiple barriers, for example. So like engineered barrier, geo-engineered barrier, and geological barrier, for example. So since 1997, almost for 20 years, every 5-year term, R&D program on disposal technology has been conducted by Korea Atomic Energy Research Institute as a central figure. and they have several R&D activities and achievements, such as system development, geo-environment, demonstration of engineered barrier safety performance, and radionuclide migration retention behavior through groundwater pathways. Finally, total safety performance assessment study. The question is that how to demonstrate or to validate the long-term safety of a nuclear waste repository. So for this purpose, KAP operates KURT, Kerry Underground Research Tunnel. But in my opinion, the KURT does have a very limitation safety performance regarding nuclear waste disposal. So the so-called, therefore we need a URL, underground rock laboratory, to demonstrate the long-term safety of nuclear waste disposal. So what is alternative for Korea? So KAP has been conducting research on advanced fuel cycle, in combination of sodium-cooled passive reactor as a burner of TRU, and TRU is co-collected from pyrochemical process. So it is an option for Korea. So there are chances and risk, and the opportunities are, it seems to be technically feasible within the next decade, and it provides a potential to reduce the high-level waste volume and accordingly repository footprint. And there are also risks, public acceptance, and it provides the safe improvement of a repository. There are also some doubts on proliferation potential, safeguard, and economics. This must be to be answered in near future. Okay, so as I mentioned, the nuclear, spent nuclear management becomes the Achilles heel in the whole nuclear industry. And many people said that wag the dog. But in my opinion, spent nuclear fuel has become not a tail, but a body of a nuclear industry. So therefore, in personal view, it is time for us to have the comprehensive and the goal-oriented and the synergistic R&D activity through the fuel complex, for example. So we have to resolve all the complex and integrated problem to have a fuel cycle complex. So this is the last slide in my talk. Thank you very much. So, okay, so it's a one time. So we have 10 minutes short break, and the copies are prepared in the hall. So we will open the panel discussion at 11:20. So we will open the panel discussion, 11:20. Thank you very much. So please be back on time in the nuclear fuel cycle. So please welcome Dr. Huang. Okay. So in the plan, from the program, so we didn't have a third panelist, but so we invited him. So we wanna hear the German case, and Dr. Linus Bettermann from GNS. GNS means Gesellschaft für Nuclear Service. It's similar to KPS in Germany. And he will first briefly introduce the German situation, German case, regarding spent nuclear fuel management. Please.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to join this program on such a late occasion. So thank you very much, and I'm really glad to give you a short overview about the situation in Germany, and especially about the management of spent fuel, intermediate and high-level wastes. So as you all know, in Germany we face some complicated situation right now on the nuclear market, since we have a phase-out decision, and some of our power plants in Germany are already shut down, and the next power plants will be shut down in the near future. And so this is really a challenging situation for us, and this is a situation where we have to face the management of the spent fuel and the management of the intermediate and high-level waste in a much more encouraged manner. So my company, GNS, we are owned by the German utilities, so by the 4 utilities who run the nuclear power plants in Germany. We are a medium-sized enterprise of approximately 600 employees, and we are responsible for the treatment and the storage of all the intermediate level waste and the high level waste. And this is from operational waste, that's from the running of the power plants, like resins and sludges, but also from the dismantling of the plants, things like reactor internals, components, and like that. We are also responsible for the management of the spent fuel in Germany, and so especially for the dry storage. And you might know us already here in Korea as well, as we provided the first castor cask for the dry storage transportation to you, the castor KN12. So talking about spent fuel, so what are the challenges that we have to face in Germany? So we have high burn-up spent fuel here in Germany, we have rather short cooling times, and rather high enrichment of our fuel elements. We also have damaged spent fuel rods, I will come to that later a bit, to say how we deal with damaged spent fuel rods to get into dry storage with those fuel elements. But for all that, we have developed solutions in the past, and and manufactured solutions actually. We not only developed it, but manufactured cask for that. And in Germany, we use monolithic cast iron casks to store our fuel elements. Those casks are called castor, like the castor we sold to you a couple of years ago. And so what are the advantages of such a system? These casks are dual-purpose casks, so for transportation and for storage, and also for storage for transportation after storage, as you mentioned in your talk. We have no welding seams because it's a monolithic cask, and the problems I think you were it from KAP, from Japan, as you mentioned, there are some problems with concrete canisters. We don't have that with our monolithic casks and with our metallic casters. It's a proven technology. We have manufactured and loaded over 1,000 casks. Actually, we have manufactured 1,300 castor casks in the past 30 years and loaded and stored over 1,100. We've started storage of the first casks 35 years ago, so in the mid-80s. So we have really also a long time experience with our gaskets and with the sealings, as you mentioned. And we have a joint research project with KAP on the long-term behavior of our metallic seals. So this is the situation for the spent fuel. And when you think about casks for spent fuel, you not only want to transport them and to store a single cask, but you want to see, well, how do they work in a group? And so in many countries, and in Germany as well, you have to think of facilities to store these casks. There are possibilities to just stand alone them under free air, under free sky, like in the US, we have some casks where we do that, and these casks are capable to stand alone without a facility. But in many countries, the regulatory requirements require a facility to do that. And in Germany, we run a couple of those, or we constructed, developed, and now run a couple of those facilities. and have some good things seen how to do that. And all those operation experience we have from the Castor casks and from the facilities go back into the development of the casks and to improvement for the next generation of such casks. When one thinks about these casks, one has to think about capacity. This is something really important, and this is highly dependent on the circumstances of the fuel elements. When one thinks about things I said earlier about burn up and heat capacity and things like that, then one always has to choose how many fuel assemblies can suit it in one casks. And for PWR, for example, we can go up to 32 fuel elements in one cask, but this is always dependent on the circumstances of the fuel element itself. So there might be only 24 or only 21, but it can go up to 32. This depends on the circumstances, really, of the fuel element itself. And as I said earlier, once the process of dealing with the spent fuel started, you really have to think of the damaged spent fuel in the end, because there's a huge step function in costs to run a plant when you empty the complete pool. So when you start dismantling, you empty the first fuel elements, and then you want to start to dismantle the reactor, then you really had to get rid of all the fuel in the reactor. This is for safety purposes and also for cost of security really important. And we developed a system called the GNS Quiver to do that. The GNS Quiver basically is a system for dry storage of the damaged spent fuel, and the quiver can be loaded inside the Castor cask like a normal fuel element, and this is a huge advantage. So we can load the quiver in the reactor pool, do all the handling and drying on the pool floor, so outside the water of the reactor, and then go back in the pool and load the quiver inside the Castor. So this is a system we developed in Germany, and we will do the first hot loading of such a quiver with damaged spent fuel end of this year in a German nuclear power plant. So this is a well-proven system, and in the workshop we already run our cold trials, and we are looking forward to do the first hot loading end of this year. So to not stress the time too much, I want just to give a couple of few words about the intermediate level waste and high level waste in Germany. So as I learned here in the last couple of days, the Korean situation about intermediate level waste and high level waste is that you mostly cement your waste, and you put it in drums and then bring it to Korat. Maybe we heard something on that later on. In Germany we go a little bit different way. We always talk about volume reduction. That means to get as the lowest volume of the waste possible to get to the disposal facility in the end. So we have it has more or less a similar name like Korat. It's Konrad in Germany. It's only N more. And the Konrad facility has a huge cost for each cubic meter you are sending to Konrad. So in Germany we thought about how can we save these volumes. So save every cubic meter, save cost in the end for the utilities. So we went to volume reduction. That means drying off the waste, drying off the sludges, drying off the reagents, get rid of all the water you have in there, and to supercompaction. That means putting 5 drums into 1 drum in the end. So super compact all the waste, put it in another drum, and then, well, the activities per cubic meter is rising, but the volume reduction is tremendous. And this means a huge cost save in the end for you. Yeah, so this is the way we deal with the intermediate level waste in Germany, and this is the end of my statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wiesemann. So the microphone will be given to Dr. Yoon. So you have a time, 5 minutes. So you give your opinions on the presentations and what is the key topics in future technology, for example.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Okay, so before I getting into my talk about the future, So let me just briefly back on our past regarding the radioactive waste management. Okay, so yeah, since due to the time constraints, I need to skip most of my material that I prepared. Okay, so in terms of energy issues, there are tons of the objects we can choose ahead of us. For instance, we can choose type of energy for electric power. They are solar, wind, tidal, and bio, and nuclear as well. Nevertheless, there is one thing we cannot choose. One thing is just already is nearby us. It is, as you surely know, the safe management of spent fuel. It is our own responsibility that should not be handed down to our lovely next generation without the proper measures. As one of the experts from abroad in his presentation as yesterday's session, okay, so economy is very important. Yeah, economy should be concerned, or always concerned. But so as far as spent fuel management goes, there should not be too much orientation, it's commercial orientation, because safety is the most important issue in this regard. Okay. So in Korea, there have been several trials to secure a coupled site for the interim storage for spent fuel and the final disposal of raw and integral waste. As you know, all of them turned out to be nothing but a failure until 2004, when the Korean government decided to separate the spent fuel issue from the low-level waste. After then, so Gyeongju was selected as a final disposal site for low-level waste. Throughout the number of failures, the most valuable lesson we have learned is the public consented democratic approach is the best of all. Okay, following the taking place, the low-level waste disposal, we started the process for the spent fuel management. In December 2009, we amended the Radioactive Waste Management Act to build up the legal basis for this public engagement. Based on about the 20 months long history for options and roadmap of the spent fuel management, the Korean government organized the Spent Fuel Management Forum to initially gather of the public opinion. Finally, the implementation plan for spent fuel management measures were approved by National Assemblies in November 2012, so which was followed by the establishments of the PACOS. Yes, Professor Yoon already mentioned the Public Engagement Commission on the spent nuclear fuel. Through the same needs, the 20 months long activities, PACOS considered many possibilities and other circumstances. Last June 2015, PACOS issues a recommendation report, and it was submitted to the government. Actually, the report contains 10 suggestions. Okay. So let me briefly review the provisions in the recommendation report. Okay, but it's my own translation. It is not a non-official English version, so there could be some misuse of the terminology. Okay, so number one, okay, I will talk about it very briefly, at full speed, and my maximum, okay. Number one priority in spent fuel management policy is, of course, safety of the people. In order for that, the spent fuel should be taken care of under the nation's responsibility in an efficient and proper manner. The chosen technology should be proven by the relevant experts, and its application shall not impose on the excessive burden to the next generation. And the second, it is recommended that the spent fuel currently stored in the spent fuel bay usually inside the building are to be moved to the temporary storage facility before its saturation and licensing expiration until the safe interim off-site storages will have been secured. 3, the government should prepare the repository until the year of the 2051. In order for that, underground research laboratory situated within the same site as the repository and the interim storage. They should be commenced this operation that is followed by the demonstrated test and the experiment. Next, the site for the repository and the URL, underground research laboratory, may go with the environmental surveillance center within participants of the residents, local residents. And the various local community supporting programs should be rendered. First, the invitation of some relevant organization and company that can boost the local economy. And the second is financial commission on the incoming spent fuel will be charged to the designated local community. So the environmental friendly city development planning should be committed with the special financial support in the first time. Fifth, before operation of the repository, the storage facility before the disposal should be accommodated at the same site. That is year of the 2020. Okay, and also I'm gonna skip the next because the issues already covered by the Professor Yoon's the previous presentation. Okay, so and you may recall the Professor Yoon's presentation regarding the time frames of the facilities, installation of the facility. Okay, so it shall be recognized starting with the safety, responsibility, stability, efficiency, and the transparency should be ensured. Through the recommendation reports suggest kind of some, even the new government and private co-owned organization, okay, is a little bit controversial, okay. Then, okay, so anyways, throughout the report, okay, the most important issue is the safety of the spent management and the how to obtain the safety in accordance with the time frame, okay, and reflecting the current situation of the nuclear power plant, that's the utility. Okay, so, and right after the recommendation is a basic plan for the national spent management of the country, and its implementation plans are being set up. Through the last about 8 months, okay. So this effort mainly led by the Minister of the Trade and Industry and Energy, and the role of the CORAD in the basic planning is to provide the technical support and assistance to the government. The basic plans will be followed by the registrations of the new act dedicated to the spent management, based on the mainly the recommendation from the PECOS. And yes, let me move on to briefly the R&D activities of the CORAD. Since its establishment in 2009, it has developed its own technology roadmap for radioactive waste management. The roadmap covers the spent nuclear transportation, storage, and the disposal of radioactive waste, including spent nuclear fuel. Based on this roadmap, the CORAD focuses on the step-by developments of core technology through the domestic and the international cooperation. Now, CORAD undertakes a project titles, development for the commercialization of the spent fuel, transportation, and the dry storage system technology. In these projects, we are developing two kinds of cask for the spent fuel, mainly for the interim storage, but now it can be used for the other purpose. Okay, one is the dual purpose metal cask. Yeah, the gentleman from Germany has already briefly mentioned that. Okay, and concrete storage cask accommodating both accommodating 21 feedable spent nuclear fuel assemblies respectively. Actually, the current situation is the safety analysis for the transportation cask, namely we call it the CORAD 21. 21 is the number of the assemblies, was completed, and the full version of the topical report for both transportation and the storage condition will be made around at the middle of this year. Is also very close. And other subjects, deep geological disposal of spent nuclear fuel. So CRAD is carrying out R&D projects on Korean geological environment assessment. The main objective of the projects are quantitative assessment of long-term stability factors and the deep environments, including collection of the very wide range of the basic geometric data and developments of the integrated natural area database system. Okay, actually this project was strongly dedicated to to back up the basic planning, and now is very useful. Okay, we named it COINS, CRAD Integrated Natural Area Database System. Okay, so as a summary, the safe and effective management of the radioactive waste, especially the spent nuclear fuel, is a national task, is not a company's task, is not an organization task, is a national task required for the sustainable generation of the nuclear power and for energy self-reliance, especially in Korea. So long-term radioactive waste management could be more effectively and transparently by establishments of CORAD, which is an independent organization, okay, independent from the utility and any other, you know, commercial related, okay. So CORAD has been devoted to safe management radioactive waste, including spent nuclear fuel. Okay, so last year, experts from the spent nuclear fuel and the radioactive waste management institution around the world have a consensus to stress out our commitment to address the challenge of the safe management of spent nuclear fuel and the radio waste around the world. We call this the Gyeongju Consensus. But it's going to be too long to illustrate all the contents of the consensus. If the chairman give me the time, then I will explain it later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yoon. So, please, Dr. Hwang.
I'm very glad that I'm the last speaker for this important meeting just before the lunchtime. Actually, I somehow became the master of the waste management. Of course, not for the spent nuclear fuel management, but for the dishwashing. I always do my dishwash duty after each dinner every day, under the strong leadership of my wife and my sons. And I learned 3 important lessons today from well-organized speakers today. The first one is the importance of the systematic, modern approach. Of course, not for the dishwashing, but for the spent fuel management. It's well presented by my old colleague, Dr. Juhani Vira. We know that whether we go for the direct disposal or any kind of well-advanced partitioning and transmutation, we definitely need deep geological disposal. That's the fact, period. So we have to work on the final solution for the spent fuel management. Even though at this stage, we definitely need short-term solution for the storage. So in order to persuade the local community, we definitely should show the future vision for the integrated approach from storage to the final disposal. That's the important lesson that we learned from our European colleagues, especially from Finland and Sweden. And Dr. Juhani Bira well showed the good success story from Finland, from the interim storage to the final disposal at the Olkiluoto site. And he also emphasized the importance of the stepwise approach. So we will move part by part. But to make a good success, I believe he emphasized the importance of the involvement of the local community with a key checkpoint at each stage. So he strongly emphasized the importance of the gate checkpoint. So in order to move one step further, then we need a consultation from the local community and the local government. That's the lesson that we should learn and we should share throughout the global community. And also, we understand the importance of the Plan A option organized by national government. I believe Dr. Yoon well recognized that importance and he prescribed what's the future plan from our governmental body to set up the basic plan, which will be issued very in near future. I believe that our government is ready to present the basic plan to manage the spent nuclear fuel within the first half of this year, I hope. And they are developing the detailed cost estimate and the detailed plan action for the technology development and the detailed agenda covering the storage, URL introduction, and the final repository construction. And it will be announced, I believe, in a short time period. So there might be some minor changes from the 10 recommendations given by Korean PECOS, the Korean Public and Stakeholder Engagement Meeting. So there might be some minor adjustment, but the basic idea from our Korean public and stakeholder engagement will be fully recognized and will be observed throughout the announcement of our governmental plan. That's my belief. And we learned some interesting development in the United States. So our colleague from France emphasized action in West Texas area. That's the combination of the private sector, not the governmental sector. The WCS is the private company which would like to go for the storage business. And they have a good dialogue, as already explained by Mr. Minyo, with Andrews County. And that's important. And that's also the recommendation from the Korean public and the stakeholder meetings. So the role of the public sector along with the private sector is quite important to make a good success, especially I believe for the siting. So we need a good involvement of the private sectors throughout our storage business as well as the repository business in the future. That's my observation. And as you know, there is another good example in New Mexico. There is another private sector involvement in New Mexico state led by ELIA. So they are also proposing the centralized interim storage site for the United States there. So that, I think, implies that we need a combined effort and a system-wise effort among many stakeholders, like government and the private sectors. And secondly, we learned some good Plan B options today from France and from Russia. And I was quite impressed by the progress in Russia, and that they are preparing a lot of different options for the future implementation, like can-do spent fuel reprocessing and well-advanced technology for the MOX development for the Generation 4 reactors. Also, we have to understand the importance of the lessons from Taiwan. Taiwan spent a lot of time to introduce their storage facility in time. but they have a lot of difficulty. And we should not forget the lessons from Taiwan. We definitely need practical solution to solve the storage problem. Otherwise, we will end up with the similar cases that Taiwan is facing with at this moment. They might have to shut down their reactors because they cannot introduce the proper storage facility on time. And we cannot do that because without the support of the energy supply from the nuclear sectors, we cannot go anywhere. Our economy will have a big problem. And we should learn the lesson from Taiwan. And the lesson from Taiwan is very simple to me. We should have a plan A option, of course. And the importance of the plan A option cannot be emphasized too strongly. However, we need a backup system. So if we cannot make the plan A option in time, then there should be plan B or plan C options. And finally, I believe that many people today talk about the importance of the risk management. It's partly technical one and it's partly economical one. And I was quite impressed by the Russian Rosatom's presentation against the big earthquake event up to the 10-point scale, which is very good. We are concerned about that kind of low probability but high risk, high consequence accident throughout our all nuclear installation in this region. And we should prepare not only for the earthquake, but also for the direct plane collision as described by Rosatom colleagues. Also, we should prepare for the missile attack impact for the future coming spent fuel storage facilities as described by our Arebatian colleagues. So those kind of technical challenges should be met by our implementer and our regulatory bodies. And it will require a lot of effort because in order to get the scientific evidence and in order to get the public support, we have to check and verify the important steps against that kind of low probability and high consequence event. And it will not be so easy. And finally, I'd like to once again talk about the importance of risk management. We are talking about the technology development, but there is more important factor, economy of the nuclear energy. As I mentioned before, we cannot go anywhere without the full operation of a nuclear power plant in Korea, at least for the next couple of decades. And we should work very hard and sincerely for the spent fuel management, but it should not jeopardize the soundness of the nuclear power generation economy. Already, we spent 20% of our total budget for the nuclear energy for the waste management. If we go above 20% limit, it might hurt the soundness of the nuclear energy economy. And even though we are developing a high technology and those things, we should bear in our mind, I believe, that the importance of the economy should be well recognized. That's the comment that I'd like to say just before the very important event, our lunch buffet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Huang. So my principle is to finish the session on time, but so we will have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience on the floor. So please raise your hand. It's not the case. So I close the session. Before closing this session, so I would like to appreciate all speakers again, all panelists, and the staff in the organizing committee, and finally all of you for participation in this session. Thank you very much. So I close the session.
감사합니다. 이것으로 2016 한국원자력연차대회 세션 2를 마치고 이 장소에서 14시 2시부터 세션 3를 재개하도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.